late last week, after we were done with True Sunlight, there was a status conference being held with the protesters that JP is suing, the protesters and content creators in
Magistrate Court.
In Myrtle Beach Magistrate Court, yeah.
So the judge had a status conference in Magistrate Court?
He had a status conference.
I've never seen it.
That's interesting, right? So let's talk about the courtroom. So the people that JP was suing filled 2 rows of seats in the magistrate.
These courtrooms, by the way, are like 2 offices. They're not big. They're not. Yeah. So, they're not circuit court courtrooms.
Right. So like, there's a substantial number of people there. There's like a dozen people, maybe a little bit less, and JP sat off to the side. So the protesters were caught off guard because the clerk and the judge came into the room with a large stack of packets of information and started distributing them to the defendants. And in that packet, I think it was about 20 pages or more, were copies of text messages sent between JP Miller, TikTok user named True Crime Ree, who we've talked about a lot on True Sunlight, and a woman named Melissa Mancari, who is maybe the OG defendant. She is the one that JP sued in the fall for $6 million, claiming that she defamed him when she went public. We've talked about her on this show. She was a paralegal for a family law firm, and JP called her in February of 2024, right when he was having Micah hospitalized, and allegedly told her and her law firm that he wanted to hire a lawyer who would destroy his wife. So he didn't end up hiring that law firm. I don't know what happened there. But so JP sued her, Melissa. And so in these text messages and emails, it appears that JP and True Crime Ree, who is a woman, I believe, whose name is Sherry Walsh out of Indiana or Illinois, Indiana, something like that. It seems like JP and True Crime, I should say mostly the True Crime Ree lady, were trying to get Melissa to make a deal. JP would dismiss the $6 million defamation lawsuit against her, which has actually never been served on Melissa. You
have to serve that in 120 days or it should be dismissed, by the way.
It should be, or maybe you have to pay $30,000 to have it finally dismissed, but because of the way that system works. But yeah, it should be dismissed. It has been dismissed since JP has dismissed it because he was under the understanding that she was going to testify in these cases against the protesters and the content creators, but specifically the protesters, where she would attest to a list of things that he provided her. Now, this woman, Melissa, had only attended one protest and reportedly did not see any of those behaviors. But these text messages and emails are crafted in a way, I will bless you for telling the truth. So JP has put it on the record that, he's careful. He's saying, I'm only asking you to do what's true. I'm only asking you to tell the judge the truth about what you've seen. The question is whether JP knew that Melissa had not seen any of these behaviors. But Melissa turned him into law enforcement and had alerted the judge to this, and that's what was in those packets. Eric. Now the judge,
never heard this before. That's
insane. What the judge said, apparently. The judge was I have never heard anything like this before. In addition, though, he said nothing he saw in the text messages and emails set off alarm bells for him, which is an interesting thing to say.
Sounds like a quid pro quo I just heard, right?
Right.
It's pretty clearly a quid pro quo in that we can all see through it. We can all read between the lines. We know what's happening here. We know what Melissa believed was happening. But JP isn't on the record as asking her to lie about anything. He's just saying he wants her to tell the truth. And in exchange for that, he will
drop the suit.
Yeah, which is, you can do that, right?
Right. Yeah. But tell the truth is the moniker for, I really want you to give me what I need. Give me what I need.
And he was specific about what the truth was, truth in quotes. And he said the names of protesters that he needed her to testify about. Is there a point where should the magistrate judge have said, this is not a magistrate situation? Isn't this too complicated for magistrate court at this point?
Well, somebody should remove it up. If it involves if you can rope it into involving a state statute that would increase the jurisdiction amount, or it's a construction of a state statute, you possibly can remove it up. But if they're going to keep it within that jurisdictional limit on damages, there's pretty much nothing that the judge could do. Now, the judge could allocute JP, bring him in and put him under oath and say, let's explore this now. Tell me how this happened. You sued this woman for $6 million and all of a sudden now she's going to be your lead witness against all these other people. I mean, come on. I mean, that smacks like criminal court where, the prosecutor's getting the low person to flip on the higher people, right?
Right. And then wouldn't the judge also have the ability, Eric, to read between the lines here, which is also not just that there was, potentially, what seemed like a very clear quid pro quo situation happening, but GP doesn't have a witness to this behavior. That's where my mind went immediately is, this makes me question whether he has any witnesses, if he has to rely on somebody who has a financial... For $6 million, like how scary is that to be a mom who, I believe she doesn't work for that law firm anymore.
You'll say this guy's gray. So you don't get sued for $6 million, won't you?
So she's
not blue.
Right. Like, I mean, so wouldn't that, if you're shopping at that mall, I don't think you need to shop at that. Like, you have nowhere else to shop. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
Why isn't the judge saying, do you have any witnesses to this behavior? Because the cases that have been dismissed so far...
Remember, he's got a Rule 11 obligation. JP does. You just can't willy-nilly file suits. Remember, we talked about abusive process, malicious prosecution. When you sign your name to a pleading, even though you're pro se, meaning representing yourself, if I sign my name to a pleading, whether it's in magistrate court, summary court, big court, federal court... There's that Rule 11 obligation. Do I have a good faith basis to bring the suit? I can't just bring it to harass and I make these allegations. Do I have the ability to get the proof to prove the case? You can't just willy-nilly file a suit.